Can I sit here? Her voice was quiet, almost apologetic, as if asking for permission to exist. The man looked up from his coffee, surprised by the interruption. His eyes flicked first to her face, then down, too quickly, to the metal crutches, to the prosthetic leg beneath her shorts. He caught himself and looked back at her eyes, but the damage was already done. She had seen it. They always saw it. The cafe was crowded, every table full except for the empty chair across from him. His 2 children sat beside him on the wooden bench. The younger one swung her legs, humming to herself, while the older boy stirred his hot chocolate with deep concentration. The afternoon light poured in through the glass windows, warm and gentle, like it had no idea how heavy the moment felt. Yes, he said after a second that felt much longer than it was. Of course. Her shoulders loosened slightly, as if she'd been holding her breath. She maneuvered carefully, placing the crutches aside with practiced ease, lowering herself into the chair with slow precision. Every movement was deliberate, learned the hard way. She smiled politely, though her eyes carried something older than her years. "Thank you," she said. He nodded, unsure what else to say. Silence settled between them, not awkward, just uncertain. The toddler noticed her first. She stared openly, curiosity unfiltered, her wide eyes tracing the shape of the prosthetic. "Daddy," she whispered loudly, "why does her leg look shiny?" The woman stiffened, her fingers curled in her lap. The man's heart lurched. "Sweetheart," he said gently, "we don't talk about people like that." "It's okay," the woman said quickly, forcing a small smile. "She's just curious." The man studied her face. There was kindness there, but also exhaustion. The kind that came from explaining yourself to the world over and over again. "It's not shiny," the woman continued, crouching her voice down to the toddler's level. "It's my robot leg." The toddler's eyes lit up. "A robot?" "Yes," she said, smiling more genuinely this time. "It helps me walk." "That's cool," the toddler declared, immediately satisfied. The older boy watched quietly, his gaze thoughtful rather than curious. "Does it hurt?" he asked. The woman paused. "Sometimes," she said honestly. "But I'm used to it." The man felt something tighten in his chest. "I'm Mark," he said, extending a hand across the table. "Lena," she replied, shaking it carefully. Her hand was warm, strong. They talked, slowly at first. About small things. The weather. The cafe's terrible music. The fact that his kids insisted this place made the best hot chocolate in the city. Lena listened more than she spoke, nodding, smiling at the children when they chimed in with random observations. But beneath it all, something heavier lingered. She hadn't planned to sit there. She'd stood by the window for nearly a minute, pretending to check her phone while gathering courage. She'd felt the familiar eyes, some pitying, some uncomfortable, some pretending not to look at all. Every empty seat felt occupied by invisible barriers. She chose his table because he looked kind. Because he was with children. Because children, at least, were honest. And because she was tired. Mark noticed the way she winced when she shifted her weight. The way her smile faltered when a group at the next table glanced over too long. He recognized that look. He'd seen it in the mirror after his wife died, when the world suddenly treated him like a fragile thing, something to tiptoe around or avoid altogether. "Can I ask you something?" he said carefully. She tensed, just a little. "Depends. How long have you had it?" He gestured subtly, not wanting to seem rude. She exhaled. "Since I was 19. Car accident. I'm sorry. Everyone is," she said, without bitterness. Just truth. She told him about the night it happened. Rain. A driver who ran a red light. The sound of twisting metal. Waking up in a hospital bed with her mother crying and a doctor explaining words she wasn't ready to hear. Amputation. Recovery. Learning to walk again. Learning to be seen again. Mark listened without interrupting. "I don't cry about it anymore," she said softly. "Not usually." The toddler leaned against her father, suddenly sleepy. The older boy traced shapes on the table with his finger. "People think the hardest part is the pain," Lena continued. "Or the stairs. But it's not." "What is it?" Mark asked. "Having to ask," she said. "For space. For patience. For a chair." Her voice cracked on the last word. Mark swallowed. He saw it then, not just her strength, but the quiet humiliation she carried every day. The calculations. The courage it took just to sit down. "I almost didn't," she admitted, blinking rapidly. "Ask you. I thought you'd say no. Or look at me like I was inconvenient." The word hung between them. "I would never," he said immediately. Too quickly, too intensely. She looked at him, surprised by the emotion in his voice. I lost my wife, he said, before he could stop himself. 3 years ago. Her eyes softened. People stopped seeing me as Mark, he continued. I became the widower, the poor guy with kids. They meant well, but I was suddenly different. She nodded slowly. Different changes everything. Yes, he said, it does. The cafe noise faded into the background. For a moment, it felt like the table existed in its own small pocket of understanding. The toddler reached out and placed a tiny hand on Lena's prosthetic leg. Does it get tired? Lena laughed softly, a real laugh this time. Sometimes. Just like me. The child nodded, satisfied with that answer too. Mark watched the interaction, something warm blooming in his chest. Not attraction, something deeper. Respect. Gratitude. Ah. When Lena stood to leave, she reached for her crutches slowly, bracing herself. Mark instinctively moved to help, then stopped, unsure. I've got it, she said kindly. I know, he replied. I just wanted to offer. She smiled. Thank you. That actually means a lot. She hesitated, then said, I cried once when someone offered me a seat like this. Why? Because they didn't make it a big deal, she said. They just made space. Her eyes filled, despite herself. I'm not crying now, she added quickly, brushing at the corners. Mark stood. Lena, you can sit here anytime. The words landed harder than either of them expected. She nodded, unable to speak for a moment. Then she picked up her crutches, squared her shoulders, and walked toward the door, slowly, confidently, unapologetically. As she left, Mark realized something had shifted. Not just for her, but for him, too. The world was still heavy. Still unfair. Still full of chairs people were afraid to offer. But sometimes, all it took was a question. And the right answer.